Hey guys, welcome back to our virtual learning experience. For science, we are starting a completely new unit called Ecology. So this week, we're just going to take a look at what is ecology. So if you have not answered your questions prior to starting this video, I would like you to pause the video right now and go back to the doc in Google Classroom and answer these two questions. What is ecology and what is an ecosystem? So I just want to see what you already know, and I want you to do that before you watch the video. So go ahead and pause the video if you have not done that and answer those two questions. If you have done that already, hooray for you, you've read directions. And let's get started on what is ecology. Let's present it. So, ecology is the study of the interactions between organisms and their environment. So, it explains how living organisms affect each other and the world we live in. So, you can see, for an example, there's a snapshot of an ecosystem. And on the slide, we have elephants, we have zebras, we have a bird species, and we also have trees. Trees are living organisms. So don't forget about the grass and your plants that are coming up. Plants are a living organism. So then that takes us into what is an ecosystem? Because if we're looking at how organisms affect each other in the world they live in, elephants do not live with polar bears, right? Even in the zoos, they're separated. They're in two different ecosystems. So an ecosystem is all the organisms and non-living features living together in their environment and how they interact with each other. So if we look at this picture here, an ecosystem, this is just a small snapshot of an ecosystem. We have the sun. Now think about it. Is the sun living? Right. The sun is non-living, but that's what an ecosystem is. It's looking at living and non-living features. So the sun is providing energy to the tree, and the tree is called a producer. So in the next couple weeks, we're going to be going over photosynthesis and all these vocab words that I am using. So if you're not familiar with them, that is okay. By the end of our ecology unit, you will understand and know every vocab word I am saying. So it is important that when I assign vocab practice like Quizlets or vocabulary, that you are doing those. Okay, not to be sidetracked. Let's go back. So the sun provides energy. The sun is non-living, but is providing energy to a tree, which is called a producer, which is living. Okay, our plants are living. They go through a process called photosynthesis, right? Because you don't see a tree pulling up to McDonald's to get a burger. They make their own food using sun, carbon dioxide, and water. So they are pretty cool. If we look over here, we have something called a primary consumer. I'm not really worried about primary right now. A consumer, and then the secondary consumer. And I'm not really worried about secondary right now. We'll talk about that. But they're both consumers. So think about, how does a squirrel get his energy? How does this fox get his energy? So they have to eat to get their energy, right? It looks like they have a little acorn here. So if you're eating to get your energy, you're considered a consumer. And then we have some decomposers like worms and different bacteria in the soil. That is also part of the ecosystem. So these living and non-living things are all part of one ecosystem. And there are different types of ecosystems. So when I say ecosystem, you might think of biomes, which I know you've talked about, like the tundra and deserts and different types of biomes. So let's take a picture or take a look at to other types of ecosystems. There are more. Okay, I'm just giving you a snapshot of some. So if we look at this pond ecosystem, we have ducks, we have a beaver, we have geese, we have a deer, we have a swan, we have a raccoon, we have a turtle, butterflies, grass. It's kind of blurry, but I think there might be some insects back there too. Ooh, yeah, because there's just some insects up front that are all living together. All of those species are living that we noted, but then you have non-living. You have the water, you have the sun, right? Because it's light outside, so we know there has to be sun. Those would be non-living species. So how those interact and who eats who is what we're going to talk about, right? In order for us to get energy, we have to eat. So we are going to look at, well, where does our energy come from? And if you go to this desert, we have all sorts of things going on here too. We have fox, we have a rat, we have quail, coyote, we have plants, we have trees, we have rocks, right? Some of them might hide there to get away from their predator if they're prey. So all of those organisms are living together. And if we were to take one organism out of that ecosystem, it could mess up the whole ecosystem. So those are some things that we are going to be talking about in the next coming weeks. So we're going to talk about photosynthesis to start. That will be next week. And then we're going to look at the two types of organisms. You're either a producer or consumer. But if you're a consumer, then you can be classified either as an herbivore, carnivore, omnivore, scavenger, parasite, or decomposer. So there's a lot of vocab there. And if you're not familiar with it, again, deep breath, we will get there. We will learn these words. Then, once we understand the types of consumers and producers there are, we're going to look at, okay, how do they interact? Who gets energy from who? So we're going to look at food chains and food webs. We're going to look at who's the prey in an ecosystem and who's a predator in an ecosystem. And sometimes you have an organism that's both prey and predator. Then we're going to look at symbiosis, which is a fancy word that means how organisms interact together. So we have mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. There are 3 different ways organisms can interact with each other. And then our final topic is going to be talking about organisms or species in trouble. So you might have heard of these words before. If an organism is threatened or endangered or extinct. So we're going to more specifically look at organisms in Ohio that may be on our threatened or endangered list. If they're extinct, unfortunately, they're extinct, they're not coming back. But if they're threatened and endangered, we can make efforts to help them and their populations grow. So hopefully they don't become extinct. So that's what's coming up in the next few weeks. I know this virtual learning is definitely different, and we will make the best of it. So hopefully this little presentation kind of gives you an idea of what ecology is. The Quizlet is definitely going to be your best friend through the ecology unit. So if you are having trouble getting on to Quizlet, which is linked in Google Classroom right here in this document, that's going to really help you learn these vocabulary words in this unit. This unit is really, really, really heavy in vocabulary. So if you're having difficulty getting on there, shoot me an email. We'll figure it out. But otherwise, hope you had a great science lesson.